Okay. We're going to move into the next set of talks for the day. These are known as lead shots. So some of you might have seen some of these lead shots the previous year. We have a power-packed agenda with 6 amazing speakers today from our own community. So I hope all of you will welcome them with a big round of applause. Lead shots is a format of about 8 minutes of talk, so they'll try to give you lots of insights, lots of actionable stories in these power-packed 8 minutes. The first speaker today is Kristin. Kristin Joy Ekkens is on a mission to spread human kindness. Kristin is a TEDx speaker, 2 times founder, executive coach, award-winning entrepreneur and consultant, master facilitator and community convener. She's the founder and CEO of Exponential Inclusion, a global impact company that specializes in building inclusive, innovative, and high-performing cultures. Over to you, Kristin.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. 12 strangers, 113 kilometers, changing the world. You see, all of these people came from all different countries, cultures. They came from different ways of being. And as they came together, they found that they were connected. But they came from very different worlds. And what they did was met in a small town called Sarria. Sarria is a small town in northern Spain. And what they did was found themselves together on the road to Santiago, otherwise known as El Camino. What they found was that they were very connected. And they found that there was one thing that connected them together. And the one thing that connected them was something that was very special, something that they found, even though that they were all different, and they had different languages, they had different cultures, different ways of being. They found that they were together at dinner one night. And at dinner, one of the leaders pulled something out of their bag. And this is after a 9-mile hike. They were exhausted, pulled something out of the bag that said, and this is an entrepreneur, crazy just might work. Okay, so after that leader pulled that out, the next leader said, you know, I'm a corporate leader. I think I can share something about myself. And they pulled something out of the bag, and it was a picture of their family. And as they pulled this picture out, they shared stories of their family. The last leader, this leader, a social impact leader, said, you know, here, let me share something about myself. And they pulled out a tassel from Stanford Lead. Okay, all right, come on now, warm it up, okay. Pulled out the tassel, and as they pulled that out, they saw, okay, these are artifacts about me, about what makes me who I am and why I'm here. All of these leaders from very different paths, but they came together. And what they found once they came together, that they were connected. And they were very connected in different ways, but they were connected by one word. And that one word got lost in translation. That one word, it got lost in distraction. That one word, it got lost in destruction. That one word, it got lost in the daily grind. So these change makers, because this is what connected them all, they were change makers. They were people who were leading on the edge. They wanted to make a difference in the world. They were driven to make a positive difference. But when all of those things happened to them, and they found themselves really exhausted by the challenges that face humanity. And what they found was that 1 + 1 + 1 did not equal 3. It was a flawed equation. It equaled 0 because they were depleted in energy. They knew there had to be a better way. There had to be a better way. Well, what I found over the last 25 years of studying the intersection of language, of people, of culture, I found that we're doing it the wrong way. We have been approaching an exponential problem with a linear equation. So here's what I'm suggesting to you today, is that we need humaning skills. What is humaning? Humaning, I believe, is a process. It's a process that helps us connect much more deeply. It's a process that helps us connect authentically. And it is truly about making choices that help us align to the greater good for all humanity. That is humaning. Humaning is an art, it's a science, it's math, all combined together. So this requires an exponential equation. All right, now here you can take a better picture of that because we're going to crack the code together. Take a look here. We have no seconds, so very quickly, look at this code. I'll give you a quick hint. Theta, delta, sigma. So what does this actually mean? It's a process for humaning. So I'm going to recommend to us that today we start with a process on learning perspectives. We learn from others so that we can discover more about ourselves. The second step is being open to change, especially when it hits us at our core and goes against our core values, or is different than the way we've always done it. The third step in the process of humaning is visualizing a better future together. Imagine that what can you do with others that you could never do? It's impossible to do by yourself. Now, if you practice step 1, step 2, and step 3, this is not linear. You have to keep doing all of these things. You keep practicing these steps, then we are ready to experiment together. And as we experiment together, because what humaning is, it's a set of mini or micro experiments, because every interaction we have with every human being is an experiment. So here's the thing. Humaning requires love. Humaning requires you. Humaning requires you as the exponent. This is for every single one of us. So imagine that you, we, us, we are part of this equation, and we have the power to create an inclusive future for all, every single one of us. And so, here's my invitation to you. I'm calling all change makers. I'm calling all people who are driven to do good in the world to join me on a mastermind. And this mastermind is a 6-month virtual journey. It's a discovery, and this is what people find on the road to Santiago. It's a discovery of self. It's a discovery of others. It's a discovery of creating a community together where we can connect. And so I invite you to come with me on this virtual journey. If you'd like to click on the QR code, you can learn more. You'll see a form. If you fill that out, I'm actually giving a discount to us leaders. So you can go ahead and take a look at that, and by the end of Friday, that discount will expire. So I'm going to invite you to join me in that mastermind, but not only is there a virtual mastermind, for 11 other courageous leaders or adventurers or curious adventurers, I invite you to join me, actually hike a VIP immersion experience in northern Spain this coming October. We learn together, experiment together for the first 6 months, and then we go hike together. So please join me in that. Your journey awaits. I'm going to leave us with this. Paulo Coelho, he mentions a language that each and every single one of us, every person on this planet, is capable of understanding in their heart. That is love. So join me in changing lives, changing organizations, and changing the world.
Thank you, Kristin. I was never really good at math, and when she flashed that huge formula, I was like, is she going to ask some questions? Luckily, it was not a question, and I saw love come through. Thank you so much for the great talk, and we'll all go to northern Spain, right? All of you? All right, awesome. Thank you, Kristin. Once more for Kristin. All right, the next speaker is our beloved Surbhi. Surbhi Verma is a program manager at Google, career coach and facilitator, active contributor to the lead community, as you all know, founder of Project Agni, and women's leadership advocate. She's going to share with you strategies to embrace and transform your inner critic into a catalyst for growth. Give it away for Surbhi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Surbhi Verma. It's good to be here. I'm a program manager at Google, career coach, currently building Project Agni, which aims to empower individuals to reach their best potential, especially women. I'm so excited to be here today. This is my third time at Me2We, and nice to be on the other side, not doing the organizing and letting the awesome team do that. And then I may be the only speaker on this Me2We stage this time who's actually talking about a topic that I'm experiencing myself in this moment right now. So in true imposter fashion, I'm going to go out and say that I'm not perfect at this, and I'm not going to pretend to be. But in the next 8 minutes, I hope to leave you with something to think about and to action, and something that you can take back with you. Before I get started in terms of how to befriend your inner critic, let's take a look at my journey. How do we take a look at my journey? Okay. That's me in school. I was a high merit student, born and raised in a small cantonment town of northern India. I was top of my class and top of my city at the time, so we made the decision to go to a bigger city for better opportunities in education and career. And that decision helped land me to the most coveted job at the time at Google. I was the only person in my entire college amidst hundreds of applicants and 7 rigorous rounds to be selected by Google from the campus. After that happened, after spending a few years at Google, I was doing great. I was climbing the corporate ladder. And in a few years, I was posted on an opportunity from all of our India offices. I was the only one to be sent for an international rotation to work on a product. Once I finished that rotation, I realized maybe I see my career internationally. Maybe I could live abroad. Maybe this is where I could see my career. And so here I was in my 20s, sailing into new territories of my life, moving to the US by myself, and then this was something no women in my family had ever done before, and so I became the first one to do so. And then fast forward to a few years later, which is what brought me here today, I decided to do the Stanford Lead Executive Education, and I graduated as one of the youngest in my cohort. Now, I gave you this preview of my story with a few pivotal moments, but I hope you picked a few themes of being the first one, being the only one, being the youngest, being the top. And that sounds pretty amazing, right, if you think about it? The reality, though, is this is just the tip of the iceberg. What lies underneath is a lot of internal criticism and dilemma that I constantly go through. Questions like, am I even qualified for this opportunity? Maybe I was in the right place at the right time. Or my favorite one, I just got lucky. I want you to raise your hand if you have ever felt like you're the only one who's not smart in the room. Wow, okay. I want you to raise your hand if you have ever felt like this guy in yellow, that you don't even belong here. Many of us, not surprised. Imposter feelings are a real thing that many of us face. By the way, This image is AI generated. My husband was telling me that, Surbhi, no one's going to listen to you unless you say AI a few times in your talk these days. So this is my AI plug. This image is AI generated. Okay. The imposter feelings can feel a lot like this, that you're carrying this heavy backpack of invisible bricks on you, but no one can actually see them. The paradox of imposter syndrome is that more and more of high-performing individuals face that. Isn't that fascinating? The more you're climbing in your life, the more success you get, the more of an imposter you feel. Well, that makes sense, because when you are a high-performing individual, or when you're someone who's achieving success, there's also the pressure to maintain that, and therefore you feel more of an imposter. This slide tells you how rapid is this problem, and well, the answer is pretty much everyone at some point in their life faces imposter syndrome. So this is a common experience. So really, that's okay, right? If everybody faces it, that must be okay? Well, the question we are tackling here today is how to be friends with your inner critic, how to befriend your inner imposter. Now, I was telling someone about my talk yesterday, that I'm going to talk about befriending your inner imposter, and he told me, I don't know if he's here, it's actually Kevin, he said, well, my coach told me that I should kill the inner imposter. Are you going to teach me how to be friends with it now? I thought I was supposed to kill it. I think that's a great point. Killing your imposter implies that you are basically silencing this inner voice. But is that really feasible? I mean, if you can do that, great. Please meet me later and tell me how you do that. But I think for the reality for most of us is that it's really hard to silence or kill the inner critic. So what I want to encourage you is, how do you use it as a tool for growth, and how to learn to coexist with it that helps you become more empathetic and that helps you work with it constructively. Let's talk about how we might do that by reframing our story. Now, a lot of what we feel in imposter is actually a feeling. And I want to encourage you to think about how might you separate yourself from this feeling. So you're not the imposter, you're having those imposter feelings. Once you've separated yourself from the feeling, let's think about what is actually happening here. It's basically all this inner dialogue. Fun fact, a human on average goes through 12K to 60K thoughts in a day. Research says 80% of them are negative thoughts. Now, if you're having so many negative thoughts, surely there's something happening here. This is almost like imagine your inner voice sometimes when you separate it out of yourself, these gremlins that are sitting on the left and right side of your shoulder and just yapping, yapping, yapping. You can't do that. You suck. You'll be so bad at this. And when they're yapping, can you identify those triggers and patterns and the things that you say to yourself? And can you help to reframe that? So the first starts with recognizing when it is happening. When you go down the rabbit hole of criticizing yourself, can you think about verbal cues you can give to yourself? So maybe you just stand up and say, stop. Obviously, you can't do that in a boardroom, right? So what do? Maybe you do an internal snap, right? Take yourself out of that thought in that moment. When I was standing there, I was doing exactly that, by the way, if anyone noticed. So that's how you can think about harnessing your inner gremlins and using them to your advantage. The other thing to think about here is collecting evidence. Now, I like to think of imposter syndrome as a temporary memory loss. We all go through temporary memory loss. Why? Because we forget how awesome we are. We forget all these amazing things we've done. Our brain has short-term memory loss sometimes. And when that happens, you need to have something that's written down, that's documented, that is evidence that you are awesome, and you need to tell yourself that. So ask yourself, what would a younger version of myself be proud of in terms of what I'm doing today? Ask yourself repeatedly, not just once, not just about the past. Ask yourself every week. Do this exercise. Write it. Document it. Document each of your small wins and your big wins. What are they? Well, big wins are obvious, right? Maybe you won an award. Maybe you got funded, your startup got funded. Maybe you got promoted. Basically, all the things you all write on LinkedIn and post about. Those are your big wins, right? But hey, don't forget the small wins. Small wins are the more frequent wins. And unless you're getting promoted every month, which if it's happening, by the way, please hire me, I'm interested. But if that's not happening, most of us have more data around small wins. So what are small wins? Well, small wins could be, I just finished a project that I set out for myself to do. Even, I just worked out today. I just worked out this whole week. That was a goal I set for myself. Or it could even be someone in a work setup sent me a good praise. Screenshot it, copy it, paste it, document it, keep a tracker, call it my personal wins tracker, call it my sexy accomplishments tracker, give it a sexy name, give it a fun name, do whatever, make sure you revisit it because your brain has short-term memory loss and it needs to collect evidence. Amy Cuddy, she talks about how you gotta keep doing something until you start believing in it. So you all have heard of fake it till you make it. She talks about fake it, fake it, fake it. You think you're faking it, but you're actually just doing it, and do it enough times until you start believing in it. So can you think about that and how to apply that in your life? Lastly, I'm gonna talk to you about this awesome theory of looking glass self, which Charles Coody, a sociologist, coined. It talks about how imposter syndrome is not a personal weakness. It's who in your life around you contributes to it. Every person in our life contributes to the image that we have of ourselves. So if you're often thinking negatively, reflect upon who are these people around you that you're surrounding yourself with. I want you to think about your own personal cabinet. Can you build a personal cabinet? Who can be your biggest cheerleaders? These can be your partners, these can be your family, this can be your colleagues or your mentors. Having your own supportive peers can help you reflect your true potential. These are the people from the previous one, these are the people you go with your personal wins tracker with. These are the people you share everything with shamelessly because you know that you have the trust with them. So that is how you cultivate your own cabinet. Lastly, I'm gonna leave you with this, that you, and all of you are so busy doubting your potential, while everyone else and many others are intimidated by your potential. So I ask you, what story do you want to rewrite? Thank you very much, and let's connect.
Thank you, Surbhi. When Surbhi reached out saying that she's going to talk about imposter syndrome, I thought she's going to talk about how she never has imposter syndrome. Because if you look at the confidence she has on stage, you would imagine she's the person who never has it, and then she's like, no, that's not what I'm going to talk about. Thank you, Surbhi. Give it away for her once more. Okay, are we ready for our next speaker? Yes. Can we get some noise in the room, please? Awesome. So next speaker is Amy. Amy Pragel has spent her career in fintech and is the founder and CEO of Pragel, which aims to be a leader in kindness-centered social impact. Over to you, Amy. Big round of applause for her, please.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. My name is Amy Pragel, and I am a lead game changer. Last Me2We, I was here talking to you about how to remove barriers to kindness and how even simple actions can create something that is great in kindness and such. So today, with that in mind, I'd like to talk to you about a lead takeaway that I had in my time. I finished about 2 years ago. And back then I thought, okay, how do we retain all of the learnings that we have, right? We just have a recent graduating class and such. How do we go back and practice that and such? There's so much that we are learning these days. What I found is that there needs to be some type of structure for our learning, some high-level structure, as well as a vehicle to practice what we're learning. Now, from the title of my talk, you can probably guess what I'm thinking of. Mapping a life of consequence. Sometimes, some of you may have taken Creating a Life of Consequence by Professor Rod Kramer. If you haven't, it is well worth taking. Now, a couple weeks ago, I polled recent leaders, and I said, what did you want out of this class? How did you define a life of consequence? We had over 80 people respond. And they all said that purpose was really what they were looking for, along with gratitude and creating a meaningful life by helping others. Now, for me, I answered the class and the assignment in the same way, but I wanted something a little bit more visual. So I started looking for ways to create some type of life map and such. So what I ended up with was this wheel of life that breaks down these 8 different categories. Now, a lot of us, I think, could probably picture where we would rate some of these categories, like career, money, family. And the goal was to try and assign perhaps a level of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10 to really think about how do I feel about how much time I'm filling with all of these different categories. It goes on to be a little bit more specific, right? So within the career category or the money category, which I found interesting because I never thought of them as 2 different things, how do you feel about each of these pieces here? Friends, people, colleagues, neighbors. How often do we think about these different groups and such? And the goal is to not necessarily fill up this entire map, but maybe we can start to shade in how we feel about these categories. So we could start prioritizing where we want to spend our actual time. So when I thought about my personal map, I was really grateful to feel like I got a lot of these areas here covered, but one piece that I did not feel that good about, to be honest, was the community bucket. And part of that was because I've spent my childhood doing a lot of volunteering and community charitable impact type of work. But as I started building my family life and financial stability, I spent a lot less time doing volunteering work. And I felt unsatisfied when I did this for myself. Now, what I think you need to retain your lead learnings is 2 things. So this is really meant to be a high-level structure for you to use a way to just rank yourself. The second thing that I think you need then is a vehicle for practicing that change. And because community work was something that I felt lacking, I started doing a lot more volunteering. And some of you might know me as the founder and CEO of Pragel. So 3 months into my lead journey, I took design thinking. And in design thinking, you are challenged with an innovation project. So for me, I was inspired by my now 6-year-old daughter. And the idea was, how do I inspire kindness in children? And so that really led me to find Pragel, which has an attempt in creating more online kindnesses and such. So last Me2We, we talked about a landing page that we had. Here it is here, and we really facilitated this concept of even creating a marketplace for kindness online. Now, today, we have a working prototype that is live on pragelcommunity.com, and we've been able to really match these people that have means to those that have needs. And we really appreciate everything that you guys have done to support us and such. These are real transactions where we've matched those people that needed things and such, and we've been able to really get them what they need, which has been really, really fantastic. So Pragel has been one way that I've used to practice what I see as my next goals, because when I look at my life map, it's been so long since we really focused on outside things, community impact and such. And so for me, this was really important to use in such. What Adam Grant said earlier this year is this: happiness is not about reaching your goals, it's about aligning your goals with your values. Progress without purpose is empty. Achievement without impact is fleeting. Success is most rewarding when it serves the people and principles that matter to you. So when I think about this, and it completely resonates with me, how do you guys think you would want to fill in your buckets? How do you want to prioritize things? I think our workplace objectives will get cascaded to you no matter what. But these life goals, they need deliberate aims to prioritize. So as you think about how you want to structure your goals and such, how do we make these goals to really commit and find purpose and gratitude So this is really my call to action. I've got this in Miro. If you'd like, send me a message and I'll share it with you. And really, dig into this because it does take time to really think about it. And a lot of times we do not spend that time together. But thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me share.
Thank you, Amy, for the wonderful session. And all of us, let's all spread more kindness out into the world. Thank you once more. Next up, we have Ali Weller. Ali Weller is a global sustainability and climate leader. She has worked from the Arctic Circle to Apple across 15 countries around the world with her environmental nonprofit. She was mentored by none other than Al Gore and other luminaries in the climate change leadership. Ali is igniting teams around the world to create the most effective solutions to the global climate crisis, the much needed issue of the world today. Welcome Ali on stage.
Wow, what a great group. Okay, look around the room for a minute. This is one of the most beautiful theaters on campus. It's acoustically beautiful. And also take a look at each other, because I've spent the last couple days with many of you, and these are some of the most brilliant and inspiring people that I've been with in quite a while. And so we're very lucky to be here today, and thank you for being here. My name is Ali Weller, and I'm a sustainability and climate leader. I work at Apple, but I'm not here to represent or talk about that. Before Apple, I did environmental work in the Arctic Circle. So today I'm going to share about how the Arctic taught me to lead with courage. A little bit blurry because there was a blizzard. So before Apple, I led the communications department for Canada's largest environmental impact assessment territory. I studied biology, law, and climate science with a master's degree in environmental studies and trained by Al Gore in climate communications as a climate leader. And I co-founded and led an environmental nonprofit for a decade, and I continue to advise and coach environmental teams today. I lived in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut, an Inuit community on the Northwest Passage on the 69th parallel. You can see right there on the Northwest Passage. And I lived a 10-minute walk from a very famous 1926 shipwreck called the Maud, which was captained by Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen, who was famous for the first to reach the South Pole in 1911. Now, I helped the Norwegian government in my role in the Arctic to repatriate the Maud, and I was told that the captain and crew died because the Northwest Passage stayed frozen their second summer in a row, and they were locked in ice for 2 years. I hear some oh wows. Now, as a climate leader, this was shocking to me, and maybe that's why you're saying wow, because merely 100 years later, the Northwest Passage no longer stays frozen in the summer, and that's because climate change has heated the Arctic about 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. When I left the Arctic Circle, I took a corporate leadership training class in my new role, and the class shared Amundsen's, coincidentally, 1911 success reaching the South Pole as an example of successful leadership. But there was no mention of his Arctic failure in Cambridge Bay. I wondered why, in a leadership class, we were only learning from his successes and not from his failures. Why was this lesson lost to history? Well, the reason is because it didn't actually happen. I was shared with misinformation, and I'm going to admit to you something today that's very vulnerable. I believed an incorrect story for a decade. The real story is that after Amundsen left the South Pole in 1911, the Maud was sold to the Hudson Bay Company and was moored in Cambridge Bay, where I lived, where it was for many years until it sank. And Amundsen died in a totally unrelated incident flying a rescue mission across the Arctic Ocean in 1928. The only thing that was true about the story that I was shared with was that the mod ended up in Cambridge Bay and sank where I saw it, this picture that you see here, and that due to climate change, the Northwest Passage no longer stays frozen in summer. Now, why am I sharing this story with you? Because as leaders, our stories matter. And sometimes when we share our stories, we also make mistakes and we must correct them. I shared the incorrect story, and I'm going to now make amends. And luckily, I learned at Stanford from Professors Callender and Flynn some best practices for correcting ourselves as leaders, learned from crisis management and communication with impact. However, it's still hard. Even if we have the strategy, we have to do the inner work because it's difficult to take ownership and make reparations. And part of the reason why is because of fear of failure. There can be shame that we need to overcome to be in our strength. And part of the reason is because fear of failure is pervasive across cultures. Now, my fear of failure is of the inability to communicate the truth adequately and with impact. And as a climate leader, I'm especially concerned about misinformation because it can be politicized to manipulate public sentiment and even policy. I see lots of nodding here. Who here cares about climate change? Okay, there's pretty much everybody. And if you didn't raise your hand, I hope after this talk you will. So it's very important to be able to iterate on our solutions and also iterate on the stories that we tell. In the time that I spent training with Al Gore, I've seen the way climate communications and storytelling has evolved over time. Now, fear of failure can have real consequences for our own lives and the success of our teams. And I'm not saying that fear itself is unnatural because our brains evolved to experience and signal fear as a way to keep us alive and safe. It's just that in teams, fear, including fear of failure, can lead to a toxic dynamic that risks our ability to be creative, to innovate, and to act. And Professor Baba Shiv at Stanford talks about this in his Neuroscience of Leadership class. An aspect that's related to this is what he calls the blockbuster effect, which is an organization's tendency to, as it matures, tend toward risk aversion, overuse of perfectionism, and what he calls a type 1 mindset from a neuroscience perspective, which contracts in fear. And the reason why it's so important, the why it's so important to overcome fear of failure with teams is because it can be a lifeline for creativity, innovation, and action. Why this is important on a global scale is because of the magnitude of what's at stake when global teams lose their ability for creativity, innovation, and action. Now, two urgent needs belie the importance of overcoming fear of failures. The first is that we must solve the biggest challenges of our time together. Complex problems like climate change require many people, require all of us working together in many teams, big and small. Alone, we can do so little. Together, we can do so much. The second urgent need is that we must understand when immediate action is more important than perfect solutions. With complex problems like climate change that compound and are urgent and time-bound, perfection can be the enemy of the good when we need to act now to start turning the ship. As Jonathan Foley has said about climate change solutions, now is more important than new, and time is more important than tech. And if you want a little elaboration on that, check out Project Drawdown's website on the most impactful solutions that we can invest in now and which ones are being overinvested in and causing distraction. My antidote to the inner work of this on teams is what I call productive failure mindset. Productive failure mindset is a shift in how teams relate to risk, failure, and action by making mistakes, adopting a culture of learning from mistakes, overcoming that fear and that shame in order to restore creativity, innovation, and action. I came up with the seed of this idea while co-coaching a team in Teresina, Brazil, with an organization called the Gigaton Challenge, which has the mission to create the world's most effective solutions to address the global climate crisis. And the mission of my cohort was to reduce a ton of CO2 emissions in 2 weeks. And my team did this by iterating, by making mistakes, by failing, by learning rapidly, and they used an agile rapid prototyping method to come up with an idea to divert waste from landfills, food waste from landfills. And this way, they were able to divert a ton of CO2 equivalent emissions in 2 weeks. And they were so successful in this that they were able to create a blueprint to scale across Brazil. And what made them successful is that they started asking the community right away what they needed. So they were grounded in the real world in conversations. They didn't start with a plan that was theoretical, they went right to the conversations. They started prototyping and testing immediately, and then they asked for feedback early and often with the community. They didn't wait for a perfect plan, they made mistakes, they learned from them, and they iterated rapidly. This required courage in the face of fear. It also required a shift to seeing failure as research for future successes. It also required implementation of a growth mindset, and me and my co-coach, we needed to model and create psychological safety within the team and keep doing that and reminding and demonstrating it. It also required an understanding of the difference or discernment between bad failure and good. So good failure, I mean strategic, productive, and iterative, and an ability to make mistakes and learn from them. And in this way, they were able to effectively have many low-calorie failures that took them toward action. Low-calorie failures is something that Baba Shiv taught me about. So key leadership strategies that I came up with that you can implement in your teams to implement productive failure mindset is to guide teams to relate positively to risk, failure, and action, to model and coach growth mindset and psychological safety, to sandbox low-calorie failures. And if you catch the typo on this slide, I have a prize for you at the end. Come see me. Little game. And low-calorie failures being small failures to get to big wins through an experimental process using an agile, rapid prototyping framework. And then to engage the community early and often to make even action a prototype. So if you would like to learn more about engaging your teams with productive failure mindset, then get in touch. Or if you're already doing something with it like this with your teams and you'd like to be featured in a chapter of my upcoming book or be interviewed on my podcast, then please reach out. Because when we give ourselves permission to fail, we give ourselves permission to excel. After all, we are all failures sometimes, at least the best of us are. Thank you.
What an inspiring speech. We keep talking about how leaders are impactful. Think about the impact that she spoke about. Gigaton challenge in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks. Thank you, Ali, for inspiring all of us and setting the stage for many sessions today about climate change and how we all can contribute. Next up, we have Vishal. All the way from Singapore, Vishal is from the Game Changer cohort. An interesting anecdote about Vishal is that he started the LEAD program at the age of 50 as a gift to himself. And guess what? He is now a distinguished scholar. His infectious energy is palpable. He's a great friend that I made in Japan. Vishal is back on the LEAD short stage to share with us how he is part of a movement of weaving happiness in every life you touch. Take it away, Vishal.
Hello, leaders. Remember the last time that I was here, last year? I spoke about the soil. And I spoke about how the solution of saving the soil lies in our hands. Yeah? Today, I have an opportunity to be in the elite company of 5 beautiful ladies. I'm the only man in the team here. And when I got to know of this, I thought I should be talking about what women in a part of Asia are doing with their hands, their head, and their heart to weave happiness. And this is what I will be talking to you about, how these women in Asia are weaving a fabric of happiness. And by the way, 2 of these women are sitting right here in the room. First things first, right? It was 2019, it was pre-COVID. We were all in our homes, not in our homes as yet. It was pre-COVID, and I had a young adult and a teenage girl growing up in my house. And as every household, they were busy with their phones and the social media. I'm getting a stare again from the little girl here. But yes, that was a situation. And when we started as parents looking at data, it was scary. And I think a lot of you will correlate to this data. There were about 200 plus people, and this is just one statistic, one survey. About 200 million people were suffering from the social media impacts as negative impacts. There were almost every parent thought that the whole impact of this social media was negative on their children. 1 out of every 5 children were a victim of cyberbullying. 1/3 of the kids felt the FOMO effect and fear of missing out. Half of them also felt inadequate. We also saw a detail that getting 30 minutes out of their system onto something more productive may be able to reduce the depression that they go through. And we had to break this dopamine loop. You know, this dopamine loop, and guilty as charged, I think all of us are suffering from this dopamine loop. The replacement of this dopamine loop was to be done. I don't know why the D rolled down. When I sent it, it was supposed to be proper. Let me show you the first picture that Weaving Happiness took in its own journey. Now, this is the very first picture of probably 1,000 of pictures on the Facebook page that we have, and about 80,000 pictures on my wife's phone right now. Yeah? And the girl in the center is my daughter, Manat, who's sitting in there. So this was the story which began from my living room, and a young mathematician who's a part of the extended family took a crochet hook, which is the magic wand, as we call it, and some yarn, and a lot of quality time, out of her system, and took this girl and her friend onto the beach. And they started to learn how to crochet. Now, as that started to happen, there was something which came out in the next 10, 15, 30 minutes. And that was the instant gratification that came from a like or a flash on the phone. And that's when we saw that things could change. When these kids came back to us, asking us for more, we started taking them to cafes. We started taking them to small community places. And you see there's happiness in there on the faces of these children. The community slowly started to grow, and from these little children, we added elderly in the condominiums, the people who actually had some time with them, and brought them into a community format to be able to crochet and do a lot of stuff together. Now, crochet was not where we were going to stop. It went to knitting, it went to macrame. I'll show you some slides on what macrame is all about, and some crafting work. So the community started to grow, and then came COVID, but the work didn't stop. The work started to continue to happen from the homes, connected on Zoom calls, and stuff like that. This was the time that we said, we've got a community now, and we must start to give back. So now you'll see lots and lots of pictures. They're just a few of the 80,000 that I spoke about earlier. But they're very bright pictures, and you see the colors and the happiness in the pictures. This is, and I'll talk about 4 giving back projects that we do. MKAC is Muslim Kidney Association, where we serve the dialysis patients. The Muslim Kidney Foundation helps the dialysis patients, and when the dialysis is going on, their hands go cold. Our hand warmers knitted by the women keep them warm and loved. Asra is a small organization in Dehradun. They now have about 650 kids that they've picked up from the streets and have started giving them education. We got an opportunity to get associated with them. We send them the beanies, hand-knitted in Singapore, and shipped back to India. Now, doesn't make commercial sense at all, right? I could have got them shipped from China straight into India. They would have been cheaper, they would have been faster. But just try to understand the whole process that went through with the weavers. Every weaver who was weaving a beanie with literally a I love you in every stitch was going through a huge cleansing process. And when these beanies reached these kids, I mean, you see the face of the little child there. Probably 3 meals are more important to him than the beanie. But it's our volunteers who go through the whole cleansing journey. And that's what Weaving Happiness was able to bring to them. ACMI, Family of Immigrants. And I'll come back to you as what you can do later with this, Reina. ACMI, a family of migrants, right? In Singapore, we have the privilege of having the foreign domestic workers who come and help us. So they have their Sundays available with them. It is these ladies who spend their Sundays trying to train these homemakers. The homemakers, instead of whiling away their time on the streets, come and learn from them, and then they come back and make beanies for us, right? So that's a beautiful process that has come into place. Oscars, I mean, some of us are pet lovers, right? So there are granny squares which are made by each and every individual weaver separately, and then we put these granny squares together, put a sheet or an old bed sheet behind them, and convert it into a quilt. Now, when we sent this to Oscars, which was a dog shelter, the people said that the dogs are under trauma, they will spoil this whole thing. So can we sell these quilts to dog owners and use the money that comes out from them for the first aid of the dog shelter? So that was a beautiful way of doing that. These are some of the giving back projects. And yeah, I have to go back to this one. Kristin came to Singapore. Hi, Kristin. Thank you for the pause range. You see the paw there? So Kristin was in Singapore immediately after Me2We, and she had a chat with my wife and her partner, and a leader advised someone else to convert it into a little bit of a commercial model. And then came the pause range, right? I had been trying to tell them this for 6 months. It didn't work, but yeah, it works when leaders talk. So thanks, Kristin, for that. We didn't stop just at just giving back projects. Entity is where I work. So there was a CEO Connect Day, and we built up a pop-up booth there. We just got up a pop-up booth and engaged some of these people in sustainability related projects, right? So this was another thing that we did. There's a huge sustainability focus. Every Tuesday, my wife sleeps only at 2 a.m. because she's posting a Trash to Treasure Tuesday project. Every Tuesday, we have a specific post on Facebook which kind of converts trash into treasure, and there's a whole set of process that runs through that. This is the macrame project that I was talking of, right? We got an opportunity to get ourselves licensed to be at the prisons, the Singapore prisons. All of us have heard a lot about the Singapore prisons. There are inmates in the prisons who needed to be rehabilitated in some way or the other, and we could not carry the crochet hook inside. So what we did was we converted our crochet into a macrame project. Now these cords and knots, the ones that you see on the left, have a very binding meaning for an inmate, right? Every time an inmate thinks of cords and knots, he thinks it's binding. What he did in the 1.5 hours is those 3 keychains. That was liberating for them. Amongst the volunteer projects is also something that we do with the Parkinson Society. We got the Parkinson warriors who are not able to do anything to get their pre-loved t-shirts. Do you remember the Save Soil t-shirt that I was wearing the last time? this is what it has become in an hour's time. And this was done by Parkinson's warriors. So old pre-loved T-shirts get converted into shopping bags and tote bags through this process. Yeah, so these are some of the things that our volunteers have been working on. So what I'm trying to go through is that a story which became an experiment has now got converted into a little organization and now a movement. This is the movement of weaving happiness in every life that we touch. And these are the lives of our volunteers, of our beneficiaries, of our community, and the people around. If you notice, we started with crochet, we went into craft, we went into macrame. So there were various modalities that came into being. And as we started to work with the teenagers and the old age people and the inmates, there came out a fabric of happiness. So this is the fabric of happiness that I started with to talk to you about. And I'm sure the leaders want to know what can we do about it. But before that, a quick show of hands on this statement. Success is not the key to happiness. Happiness is the key to success. A quick show of hands. And those of you who have not raised your hand must spend some time with me outside. Yeah? But I take it further. Giving is the key to true happiness. So how you can be involved is, first of all, go to our Facebook page, take a look at it, just get on to seeing what all is available there. And there's a ready template for you, right? We've gone through this whole for 5 years, so there is a ready template for you. I would request all of you to see how you can adopt this. Take it to your organizations, take it to your families, take it to your communities. It works. It really works. And also today I have some small gifts for all of you guys. So these will be with these 2 little girls. Do come and take them as much as we have. Not 2 little girls, 1 little girl, and one of them is my wife. So do come and take those things from them, and be with us. I mean, join the movement in whatever way you can. I heard someone say there in the morning to me that they want to know from us as to how we're doing this. So happy to come and have a discussion with all of you there, and try and reach out to us on the Instagram and the Facebook page. And here I just wanted to thank these 2 women for weaving happiness into my life and so many lives. Love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Vishal, for the amazing story, and it's great to have your family here as well. One more round of applause for Vishal and his very inspiring story. I love how all these connections are being made even within these lead shots. Earlier we heard from Amy about small acts of kindness. Here we have Vishal talking about how you can bring so much happiness to people just one stitch at a time. Thank you everyone. Next up, we have Deepti. Deepti Pahwa, she needs no introduction in this lead community. Deepti wears multiple hats: innovation strategist, executive coach, CF for multiple Stanford lead courses. Building ecosystems for innovation and empowering entrepreneurs is a passion that she has founded Lisa Lead Incubator. She's now building something similar with the MIT Media Lab. She's the author of the best-selling book, Trailblazing Founders. She hopes that will inspire many founders and innovators around the world. Over to you, Deepti.
Thank you. And my AI word is just in my introduction. That's it. All right. Are you guys all feeling inspired with these wonderful talks here? Yes. I certainly am. But imagine, what if I said to you that each of these ideas that have been shared today on this Stanford lead shot stage have the potential to reach 6.25 billion people. And that is 77% of the world population. Curious how we got to that number? In 1960s, there was a small world experiment that was run by Stanley Milgram, who asked some people to send letters to few of their friends who they knew by first name, But the idea was that they could not send those letters to those people directly. They had to use friends and family or network to indirectly send those letters, and it turned out that every letter reached the target person in maximum of 6 people connection, which is actually establishing the rule of networking, which says that any 2 people in this world are connected with a maximum separation degree of 6 people, which also means that if you have an idea and you want to have access to an audience that you're not connected to at this point in time, all you need to do is to be able to communicate it through those 6 people in the chain. Research also shows that each one of us has about 150 people in our immediate network or social network, which is called the Dunbar's number, which means our friends, family, acquaintances. Take that number, that's a very interesting piece of research even for me. And I would say that for me, that number is extremely low because I live in Switzerland and I meet more cows than humans. But taking on a serious note, this room has the capacity of 400 people right now. And if each of these 400 people in the audience, you guys, shared this idea that has been shared on the stage today with only 50 people, that is 1/3 of your Dunbar's number, and those 50 people shared it with another 50, with another 50, 6 times over, the potential reach of that idea is 6.25 billion people. Now, the thing is, the idea has to be good, absolutely, but how do you communicate that idea in a way that compels people to share it 6 times over? And to do that, it's something that I have just done with you guys as an experiment. What I did was, I started with the surprise element, which acts as a tactical disruptor. A potential reach of an idea, 6.25 billion people, how is that even possible? Then I asked you guys, I explained to you guys exactly how that works with smaller elements that tie into that sense-making of that data. And eventually, I explained to you through credibility of research that how this is even possible. Now, this strategy actually works as a dopamine boost for our brains. And this is a strategy which has been used by communicators for decades, but all of you guys pretty much know this strategy through thriller novels and the movies, that are mystery novels and the thriller movies that you're all watching, I would say. What it is actually doing is it's taking 3 phases. So first is, it makes you inquire about the idea that is being presented. It engages you with the research that tells you what exactly is happening for you to make sense of that data. And the third thing is making you remember that with a statistic that I've been repeating over and over again. 6 times over, 6.25 billion people as an example. But at the same time, what it also does is that it enables you guys to go back now to share it with people because you have now a new piece of information that you did not know. And you find value in sharing it with other people. This is something which is known as the viral effect. And I want to share 3 stories with you to explain that viral effect. I think most of you guys are right now aware of the Power course. So my first story is going to be about Professor Jeffrey Pfeffer, the Power course, and you guys. So what happens is most of us are introduced to this Power course with a surprise element. This is the best course you're ever going to take. This course is going to change your life. This course, if you haven't taken Stanford Lead. And everybody that I know of wants to sign up for this course as the first course when they get onto Lead. Now, being part of the Power course as a coach in the CF, I have worked with 300+ lead executives, and I can tell you, 90% of the people join this course out of curiosity. In fact, most of them do not even agree with the concepts that have been described about the course before they join the course. So that is how they come in. Now, step 2, you come into the course, and Professor Pfeffer provocates you with his ideas. Use flattery, break the rules. And you guys are like, oh, wow, that's an uncomfortable space. But then all of you guys are asked to apply these principles in the very first week. And something starts to happen, something starts to shift. You guys say, oh, this is contextualized to me, this works for me. And within very first week, we start hearing from participants, this course works, this content works. And then the third thing that is done to you guys as part of the course is, in the first or second week, we bring in past participants who talk about their stories of their power journeys and what they're doing with it today. And that's the credibility factor that has been set in right in the beginning of the course. And you guys are now all inspired and charged up to make that difference. And do you guys know what happens also? You guys have just joined the power cult. And next time, when you meet another leader, do you know what you say? This is the best course to take. Isn't it? My second story is inspired by Mother Teresa. Now, Mother Teresa once said that if I look at the masses, I would never act. But if I look at one person, I would act. What does that mean? Again, a piece of research for you. There was a research that was run to see if people react to donation requests with 2 different kinds of campaigns and what is the impact of that. The first campaign said, you have the power to change and impact 3 million kids in Africa by way of adding some donation through some pennies every day. The other campaign said, you have the power to change Rukia's life, a girl in Africa who is going to be educated because of you, and you are going to get monthly updates on her education reports, as well as whatever you're doing is just the cost of your daily coffee. Now, tell me, what do you guys think? Which campaign did better? 2. I see a lot of 2s, yes. Absolutely. And not just did better, the number of donations went up by 2 times, and the amount that was donated were also 2 times. Again, a surprise element. Just by donating a coffee a day, I could make a difference in somebody's life. The credibility factor. I exactly know which is that person that I'm going to be making a difference to. As well as also, I now know that I'm getting the result, as well as I now know that I'm going to get the progress reports, so I can be really rewarded on a day-to-day basis as to what this girl is doing with whatever I'm giving. My third story is about Apple's Think Different campaign. Now, most of us would have heard about the Crazy Ones, the campaign, right? Now, what does this campaign do? It tells you, in a surprising way, that imagination is more powerful than expertise and knowledge. And it also tells you that it is the crazy ones who change the world, not the logical ones. And it builds credibility by giving you examples of Nelson Mandela, John Lennon, Albert Einstein. And it tells you in your own context that how, by thinking different, you could achieve great things. So you cannot argue with data, and the point here to drive forward is most of us, every single day, recommend things, products, ideas at least 16 times. That's a piece of research. And yet, most of us do not take advantage of those frequent conversations that we have with each other. And all the people who are innovators and startup founders, when they have a presentation to give, they actually rely on those boring presentations and all the metrics that they're showing on the stage. But they're never talking about the impact that they could be creating, and they're not talking about how to engage the audience with the knowledge gap that exists between them and their ideas. So if there's one thing that I want you to take away from this talk, it is that making your ideas heard by the right audience, it is less unicorn and more in our own individual power to actually do that. And you need only 3 things to do that. Number 1, identify that knowledge gap between your audience and yourself and your ideas and make them aware of that. Secondly, engage them through the process of how they can bridge that gap. And thirdly, build credibility through testimonials as well as through data so that they start believing in what you're saying. And if you guys liked what I just said, it is one of the 5 principles that I talked about, but there are 4 other principles that I've written in my book, Trailblazer Founders. And I'd be happy if you guys want to have more chat with me around those topics. Thank you.